like on the flop or on the turn, there'd be cases where I get complete air and wait. I'm just gonna call. There'd be cases I get complete air and I don't know when to bluff and when not to bluff. Okay, this is actually a good time to bluff. Or this is like a semi bluff because I actually have a flush draw. But eight's kind of favor his range, I think. Actually, I don't know.
He should be checking his ace and king eyes though.
Just bad. Instinct bad. I'm not really that knowledgeable in these types of spots. But all I see is that I have
Okay,
a
so
flush
face a
draw,
pretty big
which
bet
is pretty
on
promising.
988 two-tone. On paired boards, I think, well, it is
So
connected.
this
So
looks like a pretty
I'm just
good
gonna
c-bet.
throw in a little bit of check raise.
That's my logic.
I think I can
That
throw
is
in maybe
mine.
like
Okay,
40%
so he
check raise. So I'm
calls.
gonna roll for
Oh,
that.
we hit the
Get it
flush
two, gonna
on
play
the
more
turn.
passively this
Do we
time.
call? Do we like jam it here?
So this, oh, excuse me. I was the pre-flop aggressor.
We're out of position.
Didn't even notice that the button was
The question is, what are we doing
with
with the
me.
rest of our range? Do we have any
So yeah, he
bluffs in
donked
our
that flop,
range?
which is kind of an interesting choice. This turn actually completes a lot of draws. I
think
have a
so.
suspicion that if he's betting this turn, he's probably going to be betting a
I
lot
feel
of
like he's
rivers.
folding all
Not
the
going to
time.
be a lot of stuff that slows him
Whatever.
down on a river.
A lot of my plays are just gonna be on instinct.
Okay, so we
I have no
face
real.
3/4 pot here.
Like I can't really explain it. Not much logic behind it. Just instinct. There's no way he has a flush, right?
I think this is I'm leaning toward fold.
I also block his flushes, which means I'm blocking his calls. Actually, like, don't think I needed to bet there. Maybe
It's
just
really hard
check
to
is
flop
fine.
pairs and heads up, but
Okay. Yeah, he's folding like every
all
single
of
time
the
here,
sort of
which is
draws got there
probably
on the
correct.
turn. All right, so I was in the small blind. You're in the big blind. I opened it up with King 9 of diamonds. You called. Flop comes 8 of spades, 9 of spades, 8 of hearts. Yep. Okay. So let's go to the flop. Here you did something very interesting, which was you dunked the flop on a flop that is neutral, if not somewhat better for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a very neutral kind of a flop. Like it isn't particularly, I mean, it swings the equity advantage maybe a little bit less in my favor, but it's not so much that you should construct a donking range here. But you did donk.
Well,
shame on you.
I had queen 4 suited spades.
Okay.
I just thought I had the flush draw. So I'm just gonna semi bluff it.
Okay. Queen 4 spades. The thing with these paired flops is you actually don't have to, you don't have, the best way to kind of max EV with your flush draws here is not to donk. It's a check raise, believe it or not, especially paired boards, right? Like the funny thing about paired boards is these are the types of boards that actually see, the solver loves check raise on these types of boards. And the reason is like on paired boards, essentially like almost nobody, almost always like nobody has anything. The funny thing is I did have something here. I flop top pair. So you bet, let's see, you bet 1.5 into the pot of 2.5. I think this is like, this is like roughly 2/3 pot. Yeah, it's roughly 2/3. No, that's right. Like in six max, you're supposed to donk small. Apparently, in these configurations and heads up configurations, when you donk, you're supposed to donk like pretty big, like 2/3 or pot. With king nine of diamonds, like top pair, really strong kicker on this type of board, I really wasn't going to go anywhere. I think it's a pretty straightforward call.
Yep.
And then the turn was a seven of spades. And then here, it looked like you bet 3.75, and the pot was, let's see if I do my math correctly, 3/4 pot. So it was roughly three quarters pot, right?
Yep.
And here I actually folded, and the funny and I thought what was going on here, folding top pair, it's not something that like I would do here often, but first of all, I figured you either had an 8 or a semi bluff, and if you had a semi bluff that contained a 7, it would be really strange for you to bet again. Like 7-6, for instance, if you just donk the flop with that, it would be really weird for you to bet again, because basically my calling range, my continue range, like my calls and my raises are just crushing you. You have the pair plus draw, right? Like, so you want to kind of realize equity. Like the pair is not like the top pair or anything like that. You just have some, like bottom pair to the board and a draw. So like you want to try to see that river card as cheaply as possible and try to improve. And there's also, like 3 spades out there. So like if you had like a hand like that, you wouldn't want to, like you could already be like just absolutely getting crushed and just putting more money into a pot and just lose into like full houses and flushes and, like big straights and things like that, right? So 7-6 should really be checking here. So I kind of eliminated that. Of course, if you had like 6-5 or something like that, if you had 6-5, you got there. If you had Jack 10, you got there. If you had Queen 10, okay, like you bluff me again. But a lot of hands get there, and I'm still behind 8x, and now I lose to Jack 10. I lose to essentially 12 combos of Jack 10 offsuit. And I just figured it was like a really lousy spot for King 9 diamonds, just because I really couldn't improve my hand. If I had 10-9 diamonds, that's a spot where I would consider calling. But King 9, like, I just have zero improvability with the hand, right? Either I make a full house or I don't. And there's a lot of river cards that I don't want to see. There's a lot of river cards, like 10 and above, 10 Jack Queen Ace, not good for my hand. 6, not good for my hand. Spade, not good for my hand. And so here I just decided like, okay, like I'm just gonna pitch top pair. Let's see if Solver is ever doing this. So yeah, Solver is kind of mixing between all 3 options.
Do you consider raising?
I did not consider raising. I thought raising was a really, really lousy option for a hand that had some sort of showdown value against your bluffs. And like, if you have a bluff, I'm gonna.
Maybe it's a bluff catcher.
Yeah, that's what the solver is saying, is that you can bluff catch with it sometimes. Here, I just figured like I'm just beat way too often.
Yeah.
Just decided fold is best. And so top pair went into the muck.